Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. And we start this hour with a children's art gallery and museum. Over in the Rosedale Park neighborhood on Grand River is a new art gallery for kids. It's a space where some of the city's youngest artists can create and display their work. The Red Children's Art Museum and Gallery nurtures and displays the work of kids who want to exercise their creative skills. Yvette Rock is the founder and executive director of the gallery, and this kind of work is not new. She has been working with youth artists for decades, encouraging them to develop their skills and exposing them to a career artists right here in Detroit. The museum reopened in March in time for the summer season, so we have Yvette here to talk about the museum's work and how she's developed young artists along the way. Yvette, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So first, the Red Museum and Gallery is part nurturing, part gallery. How does that work exactly?
Well, we host workshops and classes for youth, and we also have an amazing summer program coming up where we employ 20 youth. And so those kids are going to be learning art every single day, Monday through Friday for 4 hours a day. So that's one way we nurture art making and creativity. And we also have a permanent collection of children's art where we display their art in our walls, and we also have a rotating exhibition. So they get to both make work and see their work and the work of their peers on the walls.
Yes. And this gallery is not the first time you've worked with young artists. What inspired the kind of work that you do?
Well, honestly, I've been working with kids since I was in college. That's really when my passion for working with youth started. I was in New York City at Cooper Union. And on the weekends, I would go to the Bronx and just start pouring into kids of all ages, really K through 12 in mixed situations. And so I've really had this passion for teaching art. Since I'm an artist myself, I just want to keep giving to the next generation. So it's always been in me.
Are you from Detroit?
I've been in Detroit for about 26 years, so I do call myself
a Detroiter. You're a Detroiter. Yeah, you're a Detroiter.
I've been here most of my life.
Yeah, and I always, when I hear, especially artists, creative folks who choose Detroit as a hub, as a place to stay and to grow their craft, I always wonder why. What about Detroit drew you here and made you stay?
Yeah, it's very interesting. One of the first encounters I had with Detroit, I got a master's in painting from University of Michigan, and my professor said, I want you to find an artist in Detroit, and I want to connect you with Gilda Snowden. And if any of you know her, you know why I would stay.
Wow.
So she really opened my world, and I got to interview her with my tiny little 8mm film camera and recorder. Just an amazing human being. And so that started my journey in Detroit. And then the next year, I was part of another program at U of M that led me to Cass Corridor. And that was in 1999. And I remember the corner of MLK and Cass. And I photographed this building, because again, I'm a photographer and a visual artist. And so I photographed the building through 550 Cass, and I've been documenting spaces in Detroit since about 1999, just that transformation. And so the city really it was a love at first sight. I was planning to go back to New York City, but once I ran into Cass Corridor in Detroit, I was like, nope, I'm staying.
I love that story because once again, I hear it often while, I'm doing these conversations, and I'll ask a person like, where are you from? And they'll say, well, I'm from Atlanta, or I'm from California, or I'm from New York. And it's just so interesting to see that they've stayed for decades and created a whole life here in Detroit. Going back to the Red Museum itself, what ages or kids are we looking at who are participating within the museum?
Well, there's nothing like seeing a baby coming in with their parent. And similar to me, I'm a parent of 5. I always expose my kids to, arts and culture and opportunities. And so it's really beautiful to see parents bringing in the tiny ones and the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, all the way up to the high school students. So we definitely cater all ages.
I know it probably is special to see the 4-year-olds getting their hands wet and dirty with the paint and all the materials that you all have. What mediums do you usually work with the young artists? Are you just exploring all of them that you can?
We try to obviously do non-toxic materials with the little ones. But yeah, we have things like paint sticks, markers, crayons, pastels, and We have some things that are pre-cut. We do every week try to have something in our creation station that families can also do with their kids, so where parents help kids who are developing their motor skills, along the way. So just we try to put out a variety of materials. And with our older students, when we have like our summer program, then it steps up in terms of material use. Yeah.
And, it's always interesting when we talk about material use. So many kids are used to, of course, markers, crayons, maybe even color pencils. But outside of that, it gets a little murky what people are exposing their kids to, especially in the art classrooms. How important is it to expand outside of the norm of crayons, markers, color pencils?
Yeah, those are great foundational materials to start with, and pencil is amazing. You can go really far with that and even develop a career just in pencil, right? But yeah, we love to get into mixed media, bringing in fiber art. We've done embroidery with the kids, weaving. I don't do a lot with oil paints because of the fumes, and we don't have like a fully ventilated space, and you definitely want ventilation if you're going to bring in toxic type materials. Last summer we did an amazing soap making workshop to bring in some steam elements, and we had Motor City soap maker, she came in and did this workshop with the kids of experimenting with creating your own soaps. We did have to utilize the outside. But yeah, we just love exposing them and giving students access to a wide range of materials.
Yeah. Now, typically kids make drawings and give them to their family members or friends. You'll see them up on the fridge. I have tons of those as well. You have a gallery space for them to display their work. Why put them on display?
Well, I want them to know they're worthy. Their art is worthy of being on display, just like that of a professional artist, really elevating what we may be. Yes, let's go ahead and start with the fridge. That's fine. But what about that next level, really telling kids, hey, this is an amazing work and your work is worthy of being up on a wall. What kind of confidence would that build in them? Can you imagine if you're 8, 10 years old and your artwork is hanging in a children's museum for others to see? It just really boosts their confidence, their joy. And I think even the possibility of, my work can be someplace else for others to see. So it's a real confidence booster.
Yeah. Yes. So there are so many questions, of course, but folks would want to know, why for kids? Why an art gallery for kids, especially when, we have to rely on the parents to get the kids there. So why for kids?
Yeah. So one, having been here for 25 plus years, one of the things that over the years I realized is there are a lot of temporary kind of maybe pop-ups or temporary spaces for our kids, and we don't offer center arts and culture around youth per se. There's a lot going on, don't get me wrong, but in terms of a space that is year-round where children have a chance to both make and exhibit art, there actually isn't that dedicated to visual art specifically. So that's one reason is I'm going to start a space dedicated for our children because, as we know, children become adults. And
who would have thought?
I often think to myself, we go to, larger institutions and museums all over the world, and we forget that these amazing artists who we revere, who are inspiring to us, were once children. And so what would it be like to kind of show that transition and that journey starting from childhood all the way to adulthood? I think about last summer, one of the we have a lot of visiting artists come in to speak to our youth in the summer. And Mario Moore stands out because I think about how he spoke to the kids, presented his work, shared his artistic journey, how he was a kid and his mom Sabrina's is his mom in their home and her studio, and what an inspiration that was to him. And then for our kids to hear that story, Mario was a kid, and then later taking them to the DIA, and then some of them had never been.
Wow.
And then they go to the museum and then they see Mario's art. And all of a sudden there's that amazing connection from young age to what is it like to be a successful artist showing in a museum. And so that just for them to see that transition and the possibilities was really beautiful.
Not to mention that, Mario Moore, Detroit native. We have Sabrina Nelson, Detroit native. We have the whole entire family there, artistic, creative folks right here in the city of Detroit that you can actually touch and talk to, which is so important to have that touch base. And like you were saying, that full circle moment where you meet Mario at your space, the Red Museum, the Red Children's Museum. You take them to the DIA and they see him hanging up on a wall, and just to know that they have that possibility in themselves is invaluable. I mean, you can't pay for that type of experience.
Yeah.
You're listening to The Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Tia Graham. My guest is Yvette Rock. She is the founder and executive director of the Red Children's Art Gallery and Museum, and we are discussing the value of spaces like this for young artists. Now, I chat with Inside Out Literary Arts often, and I saw that you were a part of the visual arts teaching there. So when you have that type of experience working with an organization that's decades in within the community, supporting young people, and you see your work, how did you take some pieces from what Inside Out is doing to help your work?
Yeah, so I've been with Inside Out. They were my first official job in the city in 1999, which is close to when they started with Terry Blackhawk as the director then. And so I've been in relationship with them as an artist all the way up to now when forming my own nonprofit. And we just actually finished our Gardner Elementary celebration with Inside Out, because we still provide services with them and partner with them to provide visual arts services to a couple schools in the city. They've really just been an amazing, I would say, mentor to me, not just like a job or a gig. I've learned a lot. I've also given, from the early years in helping to pour into that organization. And now it's just a mutual, beautiful relationship that we have where they do poetry in the schools, writer in the schools program, and then I come alongside and bring both myself and other teaching artists to teach the kids art there. So it's been pretty beautiful to have that relationship.
Yeah. And you call the space a museum, and we think about what art is for people in general, what museums stand for in general. Why do you call it a museum alongside an art gallery?
Yeah, so the museum aspect was really important to me because that, again, is that whole lifting up the kids to the next level of saying, we're not only just displaying your work, we are collecting your work. So we are building a permanent collection of student art. And, I started this whole thing as just me as an artist doing this thing in my house in Woodbridge. That's how kind of the roots. I had this multi-family dwelling in Woodbridge and went through the whole city processing and turned that downstairs into a museum and gallery and started really small. It's still a grassroots small organization, but over the years, as I became a nonprofit in 2022, part of that hope was like, it needs to not just be about Yvette and all her passions and things that she does. I wanted to turn this into a public entity so that it can outlive me. And I really hope that it does and that we lay a good foundation for it to continue after me. And so collecting the children's work became really important. And we literally are doing that right now. I have a few being added to the collection now. And over the years, I'm hoping that grows. And just like the Wright Museum started in a house and in a little mobile space, that's kind of how I feel. You start small, you stay faithful to the work, and over the years, hopefully it grows for years and years for other people to see the beautiful work that our students are making in the Detroit and Metro Detroit area.
What you're talking about, of course, is the archive of children's work, young people's work in the city of Detroit. What do you hope that archive tells the future generations when they actually go back and look at this work that these kids did at this time?
Yeah, so I think I hope it's certainly inspiring and continues to inspire others to be artists. I think it's really important that we understand the value and importance of what it means to be a creative person and an individual and really validate that. And that's kind of part of my thing. I want this to be like, this is a validating process. I want the students to know that their work is validated, that their work is worthy. And over the years, as it goes without saying, there's a struggle always in arts and arts funding and all that stuff, and arts being pulled out of certain contexts and places and educational spaces, that there is this archive of art that was made at this time. in the city. And I don't want that to be forgotten, that art was present at this time. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah.
And what are some of the things that you're seeing from the kids, especially the kids who are a little bit older? What are you seeing in their artwork? What are they telling you through their artwork? What stories are they telling you through their artwork?
Yeah, this is good. One of the things I do, I'm also sometimes asked to be an artist in residence at a school. And one of the programs I was a part of was Engage Detroit, which was with U of M as an alum. And we did a residency in Marygrove. And I did a class for a semester where the students had a chance to create a self-portrait connected to a social justice theme of their own choosing and concern, and to develop that over a series of weeks, several weeks. And one of the pieces I have in the permanent collection, which is a whole nother amazing story, but that series was really intense. It was like, wow, this is what our kids are thinking of and experiencing, and they had a chance to create artwork. And we had a huge display at the end where their portraits were hanging, and it was really breathtaking. But it was also heartbreaking because they're telling the truth of their own current experience, whether it's the violence they see or face, discrimination, police brutality. They had this. That was some of the cases. So it's just, to be raw and real, but in a creative, artistic way, and an outlet that we give the kids was really powerful, I thought. And one of the kids, I told them I would love to have this for a future art museum and to put it in our museum. And the work was going to be up for a whole year. And so I didn't know if I was going to ever hear from the kids or see them again, but because it's theirs. And a year later, he reached out to me, he and his mom, and they came to visit me, and they said, "Are you still interested?" I said, "You bet I am." Wow. And so that piece is hanging at the Red right now.
I love that so much. And, just thinking about all the things that we've been talking about right now, what do you feel when you do give these kids a space, especially kids who've never, for example, been to the DIA, never been in a space where they can see artists, let alone Black artists, hanging up in a gallery or in a museum? What feeling do you get when you actually are presenting them with these opportunities?
Well, I'm pretty darn excited. I mean, I get really, it's fulfilling, of course. But this is so outside of me in terms of I really want this to live beyond me. And so I'm so thankful to be able to work with the students to see how they're working through challenges of even being an artist. I mean, it's not easy just getting kids who, some of them have never really had a chance to create, make art in any substantial way. And so to take them through, let's say, weeks and weeks of art making, to see them from the beginning of no, I've never done a self-portrait, or I've never done, to the end, being able to, of our 6-week program, seeing this completed pieces is amazing. And I have this quote that I really, from one of our students who had made art. He says, "The program has not only helped me, but it also encouraged me to step in an artistic side of myself that I never knew existed."
What do you do with that? How do you hold that type of information? What do you do with that? You just keep moving forward. Yep. Yvette Rock is an artist and founder of the Red Children's Art Gallery and Museum. I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to fill us in on what you're doing and helping the future generations of Detroiters become artists, because that's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Coming up, educators say the earlier you introduce the arts to kids, the more well-rounded and open-minded they will be. But budgets for the arts in schools seem to shrink every single year. When we come back, an art educator will explain why art is such an important part of K-12 education. You all stay right there. We'll be right back. This is The Metro.